Hello everybody, it's Wyron here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time we are on our Carrick Buftar playing as the High Elves against the Vampire Counts, and we're kind of honing a strategy I've already done before. One of my suggestions, as I've always said with High Elves against Vampire Counts, or I've been saying at least recently against Vampire Counts, is to go Elite. Although Fate of Buna is of course a risk, you can counteract it with Regrowth on Techless here, and if you can dumpster the enemy front line, if you can deal with Graveguard, if you can crush those units quickly with Swordmasters of Hoeth and White Lions, you can pretty decisively beat the Vampire Counts, in my opinion. And you don't need shooting to do it. One of the cool things that's changed, cool things from the perspective of people trying to do an elite build, is the fact that the Mortis engine has been nerfed. It now has to be in combat to be effective, which means it is susceptible to its counters. Most significantly with this sort of build, we've got Techless and the Noble Squad. So Techless coming in with a bunch of spells. He's got all of his abilities. He's got Net of Mintok, Flaming Sword of Ruin, Feebling Foe, and Regrowth. I didn't bother with Flock of Doom because my infantry line should tear through my opponent's infantry line easily. Potion of Troy and Bound Fire Convocation. We do also have the Fireborn here in the back, so that is really my main anti-large contingent. We do also have the Keepers of the Flame, who I think are decent in this situation. With their magic damage, they provide you an extra layer of defense against enemy ethereal units. With their explosion death, they'll be a good disruptor against enemy infantry. They'll trade well, disproportionately well. Frontline, double Swordmasters, triple White Lions. So basically going super elite here and risking the fact, now granted my opponent could bring Fate of Buna, in which case I do have a Regrowth. High Elf units, of course, have very good leadership, so they're not likely to break. And if my opponent summons zombies, they're not going to get huge value against this sort of build. If you bring shooting, your opponent will probably get some good value out of zombies, just tying it down, mucking up your archers, mucking up your Sisters of Avalorn, or anything like that. And honestly, I felt that if my opponent decided to bring Mortis Engine, if they decided to bring monsters, I could counter it with this sort of Goon Squad, with this Fireborn, with Keepers of the Flame. So my opponent, going with a not necessarily elite build, but definitely a flyer-heavy build. You can see the front line here. Mix of Skeleton Warriors, Graveguard are in here. I'm trying to find them. I think it's 4 Graveguard, center of Skeleton Warriors, and then 2 Crypt Horrors. So Crypt Horrors are okay. I'm not a big fan of them in the High Elf matchup. I think they, especially if your opponent goes Miss Levy, these guys melt really quickly. Which, even if you do bring zombies, these guys will melt incredibly quickly. So I think I'm not the biggest fan of them, but in this sort of situation, they can do okay. They'll back the infantry, they'll provide some AP. Definitely could be a nuisance. More importantly, up in the sky, my opponent has 2 Terrorgeist, which is a great anti-large presence, and of course the Red Duke, who does have Elsif, so he could potentially be a bit of a Lord and Hero Sniper. And honestly, about half or a third of my anti-large contingent here is based on heroes and lords, so it's pretty important. Invocation of Nehek and Raise Dead, so only 2 spells, but like I said, Raise Dead, not going to get you much value here. You might be able to save yourself if you need to escape, but that's about it. Foe Seeker, Potion of Strength, Scroll of Leeching, and then Elsif. So sort of the usual selection of abilities, surprising with a little with the Scroll of Leeching, but that might be decent. We'll see. Can see some breath attacks going down, melting a few Swordmasters here and there. That's something you just gotta accept, I think. It's not much I can really do about it. These guys, I don't know why the Terror guys bulked there. You can see some of these guys got flattened, but it is what it is. We're going to push in. You can see I was maneuvering around, expecting my opponent to do a breath attack. I really didn't want to get hit. And so, due to the fact that auto attack was being a little stupid, I decided to sort of manually order all my troops into the fray. You can see they're pushing in immediately. Fireborn constantly maneuvering because I was waiting for the Terror guy's breath, and I didn't want him getting hit and losing a bunch of models. Techless and his boys here, riding over the corpses of their comrades. We all got vaporized by that angry Terrorgeist. Now you can see over here, breath attack on the Keepers of the Flame, so getting some value here for my opponent. But my opponent does decide to dive in. He's going after the Noble. And you can see that is going to be a bit of a pickle for him because the Terrorgeist not that quick on the ground, and it's going to get surrounded here. It's getting beaten down. My opponent does jump in with the Red Duke. I don't actually think he cast its Elsif, but I'm going to hit him with an Enfeebling Foe and immediately pull in. So you can see the Terrorgeist and the Red Duke getting melted. These guys are both susceptible to fire damage. Right now, I think it's just because of Kindle Flame on the Red Duke, but you can see just how fast they're getting destroyed. We have casted, I don't actually know, a Net of a Mintok here, just keep these guys on the ground. The Red Duke getting absolutely destroyed, and my opponent getting a little greedy and paying the price. Now, these Skeleton Warriors here being a nuisance, they push around, but Red Duke getting slaughtered. Nobles, Techless in there. Now Techless hit with a Scroll of Leeching. So I pop Potion of Troy. It wasn't like I was going to cast anything anyway. Going to heal up a little bit. And the Red Duke's going to have a bad day, and he's going to go down. So already my opponent down a Lord. His Terrorgeist is about to go down as well. It's stuck here against nobles. It's stuck here against all these troops that really hate it and can destroy it easily. So that is 2 elite units down. Third Terrorgeist to try to come in to help, getting slaughtered. And the front line you can see holding just fine. Now, you might think, well, I invested over heavily in the front line, but really this is not that expensive a front line. 2 Swordmasters is 2,500. This is about a 5,000 gold worth of front line. Compared to my opponent, who doubled up on, or who's got quad Graveguard, so that's 30,000, 3,000, 2 Crypt Horrors, that's 4,600. And then with the Skeleton Warriors, my opponent's front line was actually more expensive than my front line in this situation. And despite that, my front line is winning without support, essentially, and despite the fact that my guys got breathed a little bit by the dragons, or the Terrorgeists. So, despite that, you can see over here the Terrorgeist running for dear life, trying to take up into the air. Really just not going to happen. It's just been an absolute massacre, and the poor Vampire Count's just getting run down. And my opponent's army at this point is simply going to shatter to army losses, and it was a very brief and very brutal game. So, certainly some things can be said of my opponent's inexperience. He committed when he probably shouldn't have, with his 1 Terrorgeist getting a little greedy, perhaps not anticipating the nobles and Deckless turning around on him. Perhaps overestimated his dual capability, not realizing net, I don't know. But with this sort of build, if your opponent goes with this, a build like this one, or even a build with, say, more cav, or some more engine play, you've essentially got to counter everything, and you can almost put your opponent on a timer, because their front line, their anvil units, are going to get slaughtered. They are going to get wiped out, and there's nothing your opponent can really do to prevent that. You know, spamming Invocation of Nahek brings Sternsmen. They can buy you some time, but it's only so much. The White Lions of Grace trade well enough. They beat Graveyard. They will trash anything lower. Swordmasters of Oath just run roughshod over Vampire Infantry. You can see that if you look at the kill counts here, and consider that some of this is pretty cheap White Lions of Grace, this is really nothing to brag about. These units are just really strong. Your opponent can invest magic to keep his front line alive, but in that case, you can counter with your own magic. Teclis, of course, has great spells of his own. And the nobles, you got a great anti-large squad here between these 3 units, and of course, Teclis's nets, which are incredibly useful here. If your opponent goes heavy on Blood Knights, units like that, you can divide and conquer, isolate, that sort of stuff. For my opponent's build here, I do think that one of the counters to High Elves as Vampire Counts is bringing cavalry. Now, I don't know, Chillgeist used to be one of my go-tos before High Elves got a whole bunch of annoying sort of magic options, which, especially with, before it used to be Flaming Sword of Ruin was the only, and Phoenixes were the only 2 options High Elves had. I guess breath attacks from dragons, of dealing with Wraith units, and that's actually why I sometimes run Wraith builds against them. But now, between Sisters of Slaughter, or Sisters of Avalorn, between Handmaidens, between Alariel, who has an AoE that grants magic damage, Teclis, who's got fire, and now some casters, I think, in the High Elf roster who can apply magic. I think you can get Occam's Mindrazor, stuff like that. It's become a much more perilous situation. Plus, of course, the Keepers of the Flame. They've got magic damage, so it's become a much more perilous situation than what it used to be for the undead Karen Wraith units. So I still do think, though, that heavy cav is the way to go. Now, you might want to bring a Terrorgeist. Terrorgeists, if you're going to contest the air, I guess. Personally, I think you'd be better off bringing a Vlad on foot and some Blood Knights, to be quite frank. Vlad will help deal with his front line. He'll help tie it down. He'll help buy you time that you need. Blood Knights, you know, they could probably, with support from magic, especially now that Vlad's, say, a better caster, Blood Knights could probably beat this backline cover, especially if you use good summons to tie down the Keepers of the Flame. You could probably kill the Fireborn, deal with Teclis and his goon squad. The nobles won't do that well against a mob of Blood Knights, so especially if you've got Dire Pack thrown in or something like that. So I think you could do it, but you want some heavy cav, and that's really what I think is key here. Personally, not a big fan of Terrorgeists, even when they were a bit of a king compared to the Blood Knights. I really like the Blood Knights better, I think. So that's my 2 cents on the issue. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, anything like that, be sure to share them, and I will respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.